I mean, if you put these posts right next to the wall, it's going to not be a very structurally, it's going to weaken the structure. Because there's going to be the wall is going to be all that's holding the fence up.
So then how are the posts going to
Grab.
grab?
They're going to be cemented in place. Those posts are being cemented in place. You're going to put up the wall, you're going to backfill the wall. The area that you just backfilled, you're going to take and dig out the post hole. You're going to put in your post. I don't care if you compact it or you put cement in it, that's how a fence stands up anyways.
Well, often, the surrounding ground supports the post. And that's the only question I have, is when you build up this retaining wall, it's going to be a retaining wall because it's going to be filled in back of it, that when the wind blows, it's going to want to kick out the wall.
I see.
But Mike
That's
shakes
up to
his
them to
head,
make
and
sure
if you
they-
shake your head, Mike, that's good enough for me.
You mushroom the thing.
Huh?
You mushroom the thing so it doesn't kick.
Okay, so we're going to have the wall built
Unless the
up.
wa- unless
So
the
it's-
wall is pretty
So the top of the wall is at 184 the whole way along.
The earth.
It's going to be backfilled on the Thayer side. Posts are going into the backfill, being cemented in. So the bottom of the fence is at 184 all along, and then it's 8 feet high from there,
Yes.
correct? Okay. All right. So then, how does the board feel about that?
The bottom of the fence is at 184.
Bottom of the
Yes.
fence is at 184.
what it-
And we should specify that, actually. That's a good specification.
Plus or minus.
You don't do plus or minus.
Well, an inch, I mean. Well, I
No,
people
You have to
that are
define-
engineers, when you say
you have to-
184.
Yeah, you have to plus or minus,
That's
tell
what
us
stamp
what you're
said.
plus or minusing, yes. 184, 8 feet high.
Is what
So
it
then
is.
the fence itself is the same treatment going
All the way
along
across,
both property
yes.
lines. So now where are we ending the fence? We've started it,
So I had a question about that as well. So
Yes.
right now we're ending it at or no, I'm sorry. We have a gate. We have a gate going at the existing willow tree.
yes.
I'd rather not. To the extent possible, let's be careful about the existing willow tree or using references to trees. I'm not
Right.
even sure if that existing willow tree isn't still wrapped. So
Right.
I want to make sure we all are living with something, including the applicant, that we can rely on.
Yeah.
And obviously, the plan, we have to make sure that the plans that are submitted with, oh, did you just say that? The plans have to reflect exactly
Fair
where we're
enough.
placing it.
Fair
Yes,
enough, fair
so
enough.
that will be on there.
Fair enough.
But it is not going along, it's stopping at the corner of Joe Henning Row and not going past the Cole property, because as I remember, the Coles did not want the fence. That's your
They
memory as
have
well.
a fence. They don't need the sound attenuating
Okay.
material.
That's already exists there.
All right, so, good,
They have vegetation.
okay.
Do we want to have it
About
go
original,
10 feet beyond that,
additional vegetation plan.
along the coal line?
Will it either be effective that way? Are you thinking it would make it more effective that way? Are you thinking there might be an overlap with the coal fence? What's the,
No, I mean, I'm just
You're talking about the
thinking
material?
about noise in that area.
So you're talking about the material,
What?
overlapping the material onto the
Well,
full
no,
fence?
just overlapping the border a little bit and going 10 feet beyond the
Well, isn't it-
road Joe Henning line.
Isn't it, it's parallel, and then at the line, it
Turns in.
it turns in?
perpendicular?
Turns
So-
in perpendicular?
So like the fence doesn't end, just end?
The fence doesn't
ends,
end.
And then.
Turns in and there's a gate.
And then there's a gate, so the fence is actually perpendicular to the
So
property line.
it turns in
At the property line.
Towards the
to the
nursery.
property line.
Yep,
Right here, Alex.
Okay, so there will be sound attenuation
all the way up to the.
with a gate.
Yes.
Right,
Turns
yes,
in
the
like
gate
that.
has attention on it.
That's what was
That's right.
described to us in the walk. And there's
Yes.
going to be a
Okay.
gate here.
I remember seeing
And
that,
is
yeah.
the gate going to have sound attenuation
Yes.
material on it?
Yes,
Okay.
all right, so,
That's noted here, Emily.
yeah. Tim, you're also keeping notes on these,
But
right?
of course, if you pushed it 10 feet further down,
It's going to look odd.
All right, well, it's going to look the same as it looks now. I mean, no one knows where the line is, do they?
Sure.
Well, I understand that Joe Hennig's doing the roast too, but no one else
There's a
does.
fence in that proximity anyways.
Looks like there's a deer
Okay,
fence right there too,
okay.
Alex. I don't know.
I was just,
There's a fence there.
if you don't think that's needed, that's okay.
Well, Tim and I can write this up as we've been talking about it, and as we think between now and the next meeting, we can always
You gotta-
consider
you gotta-
whether or not we want to
I
extend it.
don't know
There's
if
no
it's the
reason-
case, but you could also consider the fact that if the neighbors, the Coles, decided they didn't want an 8-foot
Right.
black sheeted fence in their backyard, then that's.
So they may not want it
I wouldn't want to
extended.
force on them.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, part of this
Okay.
has been to make sure that we consider the,
Let's do it right on the line.
okay. All right, so, anything else on the fence? We have the materials, we have the height, we have the position, we have the fact that there needs to be landscaping on both sides, which is more important for the Lepori boundary because that currently doesn't. Anything else we're missing on the fence?
Well, we've got the upkeep
Upkeep,
of the
yep.
fence. And we need Bill to tell us what this stuff is that they're going to use on it.
Right,
Spec.
And we should look at the specs on it, Bill, at our next
Sound
meeting.
attenuating stuff?
yeah, we need the
It's in
exact,
the application.
it is,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
It's the same.
it's
same
a reminder that we
Same
need to
stuff.
actually put that into the
It's
special
the
permit.
stuff,
It's the same stuff that
Just a
Tina
different
Stevens brought forward.
Yeah,
okay, this is the Teven stuff.
right, yes. Yes, which
So
is
to
very
speak.
helpful.
Okay,
Okay, all right, so that is the fence, and I think between Tim and myself, we've got the ability to write that out. The next page talks about the Norway spruces, the height of those, and the arborvitae, the height of those that will be planted on either side of the fence on the Lepori side. So we've got 13 Norway spruces, 10 to 12 feet. That's on the Lepori side of the fence, and then the 11 arborvitae between 10 and 12 on the land care side of the fence. So, and then we've got the 8
what
inch.
goes in between them?
That's the
Anything?
fences between them.
I understand, between the trees.
Oh, between the trees. I'm assuming they'd be growing together as a hedge. Do we want something else between the
That's
trees?
16 feet?
Or you
How-
think-
How long will that, okay,
I-
they should join you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
And then 8 evergreens along the
How
Cole
big do
property.
Norway spruces get?
Good question. How big do Norway spruces get?
60 feet.
Mine's,
Diameter, 60
mine's-
feet they could get to?
Oh,
No, up.
diameter wise, 30.
Yes.
I was gonna say, mine is at least 60 and,
Does
It's over
it,
20.
does it stay at the ground, the coverage?
yep.
You can also keep it
Christmas tree.
trimmed too,
And it's 60 feet
Okay.
tall.
if you chop it off, it'll stay near the ground, as I'm finding out to my
Do we
cost with
want
my
it-
hemlocks.
Topped off? Should it be topped off?
It'll stay thicker at the ground if you top it off after a couple of years, potentially. I mean, okay, that's a guess based on hemlocks. I should not speak on things I don't notice. I'm sorry, the public hearing is closed, so, yes, they're the applicant, they have standing, and we are asking them specific question.
How close to Forest Street the fence goes.
That's all. I just, because you're talking about the coal extension, so I wondered how close it is to forest.
We walked out.
We
there
had
and
actually not
back.
yet covered that point, so I'll accept that. So we had talked about the ending of the fence along the rear property line. We did not yet talk about the beginning of the fence along the side property line.
It's written here that it would be right after the rock
25 in,
outcropping,
25 feet in.
in.
from forest.
25 feet in from forest. That's what I remembered as well,
There
so,
was, yeah, there was.
There's a big rock in there.
Right, there was a barrier that we've seen out there that kind of
yes,
excluded you from going any further. And, so.
right. Okay, so 25 feet in from forest. And the height of the Norway spruces, if they're topped off? If they top off, will they stay thicker at the bottom?
They generally stay thick at the bottom.
Anyway? Okay. So even if they get, because I know some of the trees, as they grow up, they're
Yeah, they're
losing.
not like a pine or anything like that.
Okay,
A good point of reference would be the corner of School Street and Randolph Ave. There's a stand right by the church there if you want to take
okay,
a view like that. That's a good point to look at.
good, thank you. Anything else on fence or landscaping? Okay, in that case, let's move on to drainage. We can always come back.
Okay,
Yes.
what are we doing along the other, that's the Lepori thing, or is
Lepori?
this along the whole thing?
The Norway
These Norway
spruces and the
spruces.
arborvitae along the Lepori, because that doesn't currently have planting. So
Okay,
back, the rear,
And what
As-
about the Rocho Henning Cole,
so Cole has the,
Stevens landscaping?
Yep.
What's happening there?
Cole, we have a statement that they're going to do 8 evergreens spot-sided, and that it's going to be a mix of arborvitae, white pine, and Norway spruce. Along Stevens and Johanning, as you know from the site walk, Johanning Row, sorry, as you know from the site walk, there is existing vegetation. Do we wish to require more vegetation around that?
That's the berm.
Yeah, that's a good point, Alex.
There was some discussion about what the treatment of the berm was going to be while we were on site, whether it was going to be
Grass.
crushed gravel, whether it was grass.
Yeah, and that goes into our drainage discussion as well, because
Right,
that
so
came up at the
that's
last
just a
meeting.
transition, probably a transition. Certainly, you really can't put much in there that's going to have any height.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, but you could put blueberry bushes or something in there. I would guess those can treat the water, but that's not going to do much for screening.
Well, I think there's 2 questions. There's the treatment of the water, but there's also the mitigation of the 8-foot-high black
understand,
fence
right.
now. So,
That's
so do we think that there's sufficient vegetation on both sides of the fence along that rear property line, or do you think we should require more to shield that fence, especially on the
It was
abutter
quite
side?
thick the day we were out there. I don't recall if it's deciduous or not.
I think it's a mix, if I remember correctly. There's some evergreen, but it's mixed. What do you think?
I think that we probably should send a qualified person to take a look.
Okay. Would you define either the town planner or the assistant town planner as a qualified person who could have a look at that?
I
or do
thought
you
we
want-
might send Cheryl out there.
Okay, I will check. I'm the only reason I made a face is I'm not sure what Cheryl's schedule is, but let me ask her.
See if she could, I mean, I think that she
That's
might have some good ideas.
Yeah, I think she would.
She's
Just
I think she's
keep-
back. I don't think she's
You
back.
should keep in mind, apparently there's going to be the fence.
Yes.
The wall directly adjacent to the fence.
Okay.
Below the wall is
Berm.
going to be
Yeah.
the swale,
Swale, sorry.
which we don't want to interrupt.
Yeah?
So any planting would have to be probably
Swale.
12, 15 feet from the.
It could be
from
along the lot
Going
line.
to have to be right along the lot line, too.
Close.
Yeah, pretty close.
Well, what I'm thinking too is because there's already vegetation, it's going to be, it would be spot sighted within that. It may not be an even barrier,
The fence,
obviously.
my last understanding was the fence behind the Johanning Row property would be 30 feet from the lot line.
Yes,
So I'm just visualizing that fence, wall, swale, 15 to 20 feet, you still probably have at least 10 feet
yeah,
between the upside of the
Yeah.
swale and the property line.
great. Well, I will
something.
I'll send an email to Cheryl and ask her if she'd mind taking a look.
But likely similar language
Yeah.
to what's going on at Cole.
Yeah, I think-
Spot sited, planted to increase density of existing established berm. You could actually reference, and
Same
to
materials.
fill in where there's
yes.
deciduous material or something.
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And if it's the same materials, then that's perfect.
Could,
So along Johanning Row and Stevens, yes.
could we suggest that somebody from there walk it with her?
Walk it with,
so that
yeah, I
they
think that would make sense.
See what is doable, what's intelligent to put there.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well, it does seem to me if we have fair walking, we probably should have some of the abutters there also. I think she should just take a look at it.
okay.
Great.
Make it less,
Just,
So we
Formal.
just don't-
all right. Okay, anything else on landscaping or fences? All right, and obviously the purpose of this is to primarily to mitigate the noise, also the dust that we saw in the video, and of course the landscaping will help with both the noise and shielding the look of the fence itself. So I'm assuming that the black of the sound attenuating barrier is just going to disappear among the trees, so that will help with the visual aspect for everyone. All right, drainage. I think this will be our most challenging discussion. So what you see in here is the text from the stormwater operation and maintenance plan that Thayer Nursery had submitted in one of its additional materials submissions. We've heard from both their engineer and from the two of the abutters, Mr. Joe Henning and Mr. Rowe, had hired an engineer, and we've heard from both of them. And it seemed like at the last meeting they were mostly in agreement with one or two points where they agreed to disagree, I think. We've had an updated site plan for the drainage. Any thoughts, any questions?
I think for the most part, we're relying on the plan to establish what has to be in place for the drain.
Okay.
And what were the issues, what are, maybe either Tim or Bill can tell us what the issues between the engineers are, because it is mainly an engineering question.
Yes. So do you, either of you, Bill, Tim?
There was the question of the applicant's engineer said that a new HydroCAD modeling might affect the size or shape of the infiltration structure. And there was also an issue about the abandoning the swale on
Yes.
the Lepore property line. And I think there was an agreement that there was going to be some sort of either dam or some sort of structure or process by which that wouldn't cause an issue.
A dam where?
Clay dam.
What?
A clay dam at the end of the abandoned swale, which is along the Lepore property. We saw it on the site walk. It's just a
Yes.
gravel run.
Eastern property, eastern boundary.
Yeah, they were going to put a clay dam at that would then be the northern end of it to prevent water from running through.
And then there's going to be a pipe. There's going to be a pipe?
It doesn't need a pipe. What they're saying is that it's not doing anything. is
They
what they're
they
saying.
abandoned the whole concept.
Right.
Yeah, that's what they'd
It's not
started out at
holding-
the very beginning
it's
of the
not
public
holding any
hearing.
water now.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Right.
not doing anything
In
at
the
all.
event it does hold water,
It's
they
all
want to
flat.
make sure it doesn't run.
So why do they want a dam?
Belt and suspenders.
Mr. Giuliano wanted some kind of
He wants a dam.
stop to it.
Okay.
In
Just
case it ever holds water, it keeps
and
the
then
water
where is
from
it going to
running
go when
towards-
it hits the dam? It's
It'll
going
just
to
infiltrate
go off
down.
to the
No,
left?
it'll infiltrate down.
Yeah, it'll go across
Okay.
their property and
So
then
the
so they
the
end up in the
dam is
swale.
going to be sort of a horseshoe type thing?
No, just clay in the rock.
But, so you think it would sheet off as opposed to infiltrate?
Well, some of it'll infiltrate in the stone they've already put there.
Oh, I see. The
If-
water that goes to the dam, I see, I see.
It's, if it filled those rocks, then it would sheet.
I mean, the whole,
And
The
then
whole
go to the
idea- The
swell.
whole idea is that there's all those plants in there anyways, so the plants are gonna wind up taking it up anyhow,
the property line,
flat.
the contours run back into their nursery.
Right, so it'll just sheet back into there and go into the swell.
So now, since there is an engineering question, I think one of the things that we've certainly done in the past is required that as the construction is done and changes, as they make changes during the construction, they need to come back to us. We also should remember that we have, on this particular special permit, we have the ability to, in fact, it states in the zoning that we will do it for a shorter period of time and then it's renewable. So as part of our review, as we put that language in there, we should think about if the drainage doesn't work for some reason, how do we want to call in and address that and make sure that, it is then changed to work. And I think that might be the best way of solving that, is saying, okay, you've put everything in according to your plan. In X amount of time, it doesn't work. We're seeing that it doesn't work. We're hearing reports that it doesn't work. You need to come back and tell us how you're going to address that. Might be the way of doing this. So, yes.
I think Mr. Burke also made the statement that he was going to acquiesce and make the suggested changes by the
Yes.
by Mr. Giuliano.
With
Yeah.
regard to
Again,
the
when
chamber.
he keeps saying remodeling,
He was talking about the size of the pipe, the orientation of the pipe, and the size of the orifice.
Yes.
He said he
Said
would,
he'd
I remember that, yeah.
he'll,
He'll make
he
those
figured that, a little bit more, fine, he'll do it. If
Yeah,
he
he
wants
said
it more,
he-
he'll give it more.
Yeah, he basically said he'd run it according to the flows that that were
He,
being
he
requested,
ran,
and he'd
he ran
adjust
his
the
numbers
design
and came up
accordingly.
with this. He designed it that way. He wants to run it the other way and he wants to change it a little bit. He didn't think that by making that change, it was going to exacerbate the situation. He said he'd do it.
Mike, you had something you were saying on the modeling?
I think what
Okay.
was said pretty much was where I was headed.
All right.
So does
I
that,
just didn't want people to get, I think early on, they were getting the concept that remodeling meant you're going to rebuild it some different way.
Right, exactly.
It's just, they're talking numbers, they mean,
Right.
input different numbers.
But-
Right. And I think the clear thing is that we need to have some means of saying, great, you've built it, it's been tested over a period of time, and it's not working, and you need to fix it. And if it is working, that's fantastic, it's done. But if it's not working, we need to have some sort of provision for review into this.
what is the modeling that Mr. Giuliano wants done at some point?
What's the what?
The modeling.
The different numbers he wanted the.
He wants
clerk
some
to use.
different numbers. What was it that he wanted, Tim?
Yeah, but the-
HydroCAD is the program that they use to sort of estimate and sort of model.
It's a
water.
computer
So it's just a
program.
matter of,
And
Came up
you
with
put
one.
stuff into it, and
Right.
it shoots out whether or not
Right.
right, and
it
that'll tell you.
works. And he wants different numbers put into it. And what are the numbers he wants put into it?
I don't know what those numbers are, but I know what the outcome of those numbers are.
How do you know that?
Because Burke agreed to
To use those numbers.
they're both using the same program. One
Burke
came up
agreed
with
to
a
use the
number that
numbers.
wasn't overly far away. He said, fine, I'll do it your way. You want to have it that way? We'll make
All
it
right.
that way.
So it doesn't have to be remodeled because he's already,
He's already agreed.
any
to
other
that.
outstanding issues between the engineers?
I think those were the two biggies. Right?
Well, and I think that, I mean, we're not, Mike, do you have,
No, again, yeah, when you say, when you say he doesn't have to remodel it, he is remodeling, he's using different numbers, but
Right.
I don't like to put words and thoughts in people's minds or mouths, but as best I recall, even the other engineer, Mr. Giuliani, I think kind of, it's hard to say admit it, but I think he conceded that it probably won't make a real significant difference.
It'll be
But
modeled,
it'll
it'll be
happen.
modeled correctly in his mind, and so they agreed to do it that way, and
Right.
that way everybody feels good about it. I think
Yeah.
it gives a better report from everybody's standpoint.
And I think that's what Burke said,
Right.
fine
So
for.
that's great, right.
Anything else on drainage then?
To your point, I mean, I think that's the harder question to answer. I mean,
Yeah.
is it a bond? Is it a callback? I mean, I'm not sure how do we draft it other than it's just something that we're going to look at when we review.
Well, I think the question for the board becomes, and I'm not expecting that we're going to be able to answer this tonight, is do we make provision to call them back earlier for the drainage, given what we have to allow enough time for the full improvements to be installed. We have to allow enough time for it to be clear whether or not it's working on a regular basis. So do we say, okay, we're going to grant the special permit for however long we're going to grant it, and we'll review everything when you come in for that that renewal? Or do we make a provision for certain things like the drainage where if there's clear evidence that it's not working, you need to come in earlier and talk to us?
Well, I
And
think-
that's something
So
we
a
need
possible
to.
condition could be
Yeah.
that they have to submit drainage. We need to get a report on the status of the drainage 6 months and 12 months after completion of the construction.
Okay.
That any deficiencies identified on the report must be corrected.
Okay.
and I think that the sort of bottom line is when the permit comes up for renewal,
Yeah.
the question before the board will be, has there been material compliance with the prior permit?
Right.
And it does seem to me that if they say we put in drainage that doesn't work, I think that there needs to be, we've got to look and see if it works, and if it doesn't work, it has got to be addressed so that when it comes up for renewal,
It's
there
addressed.
Yeah.
presumably will be a functioning drainage system.
So it's a long time to wait for renewal when water's pouring into your pool or your basement, so.
Well, I like the 6 month after construction because that's an immediate, that gives it time to be installed. It gives it time to find out whether or not it's working over a range of potential storms. I mean, you don't want to install it, then there's a dry season and you
Well,
don't
I
find
think
out.
that's why you need
Yeah,
to have 6
exactly.
and 12, though,
Well, I
because
like
you need to
that, yeah.
capture, and I think we probably need to say that we're not gonna, one of those periods can't be frozen. So it needs to be,
Right.
maybe the timing needs to be worked out with the planning office as well.
One thing on the review of how it's working,
Yes.
unless Mike wants to go out and check to see how it's working, someone's got to do it. I'm sure the...
Mike volunteered. I'm pretty sure he did on a weekly basis.
I mean, someone's got to go out and make an objective decision,
Right.
and it shouldn't be Thiersing is working like a charm.
gotta be an
And
engineer.
it probably
Yeah.
shouldn't be the abutters who say it's not
It has to be an
working.
engineer. It has to be an
Third-party
engineered
engineer,
report.
yeah, okay.
Sorry that I said that. Yeah, it has to.
If we do
can
that,
ask for a
we
letter
we
from
shouldn't
their
have him
Yeah,
From the
working all the
installing engineer.
time.
right.
In other words, it seems to me that maybe a yearly.
Because when you say, does it work or not, that's kind of subjective. I mean, it's not going to make everything dry.
Well, no, I understand that. I should have said work as,
No, you didn't say anything
Yeah,
wrong. I'm
yeah.
just saying it's
no, that's a good point.
What's the test? What should you look for?
subjective.
I mean,
That it's improved. but-
smiling neighbors is one thing.
We always like that, but I think there must be an industry standard
The
report.
report says, I think the report says that it's going to accommodate storms of 25, 50, 100 years. If it's a
But there's still going to
1,000-year storm, it's probably
going
gonna
to
Meeting
rain.
the standards as
that?
designed.
There's still going to be
That's what
rain.
I'm
But there's
looking
still going to
for
be
is-
rain, and theoretically, it's going to contain that rain within the property of there, unless it's above a 100-year storm.
Well, and that's the thing is to all of your points and to what Bill just said, it's being designed to a certain standard, and we have been told that this standard will address the issues as outlined in the report. So what we want to know in 6 months and then 12 months is it working to the standards that it was designed
So-
for, and then is that enough?
So the challenge is, that's easy to do with traffic. okay?
Right.
This is what I proposed, and I was using a traffic condition in my head when I proposed it. How do you determine when to measure it? If you go out on a dry, sunny day, it's going to look like it's working really well. If it's a 25-year storm, it'll probably be working fine. So
If
I
it's
think
a
that's
Category
the-
5 hurricane, it's going to be difficult to get out there in the first
The
place.
only thing I
Yes,
think you could
exactly.
see is if you went out there and you seen running water that was coming from their nursery onto another property.
Right.
I mean, that's, otherwise, if I go out there and it's pouring out, and I go to the guy next door's house and he's got a puddle in his backyard, that doesn't mean
I agree.
Okay. Right,
it
right,
didn't do its
understood.
job, and that it's caused the puddle.
So it may just be a reporting issue, that it needs to be, the butters report to the building inspector that they need to address deficiencies.
Well, there's also the issue of the flow into the town system as well, and I think
Absolutely.
that's
So
something
maybe it's
else that we
DPW,
can
and that's
rely on,
DPW.
is if that's not working, the town is going to tell us about it too.
Well, that'd be a
so-
backup, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, so, all right, so then we need
But they
to,
even created that ponding area down there
right,
to help any
Cha-
backup.
right,
The ultimate answer is it's helping a situation.
right.
It's going to improve a situation. It is not going to take the situation completely away. If you have a major rainstorm, you're getting X amount of water going over the wall, but you're not getting the pollutant slug over the wall. That's already been captured by this system. So that the water that is escaping is already cleaner than the first slug. The pollutants all come in the first slug of water, and that gets picked up by this system. So regardless of how much water sheds off of the site, it's the first slug is the one that's being picked up by this system. And that goes back to your standards. Your standards are, can this system handle the 1 year, the 5 year, the 10 year, the 25? Yes, it can. Can it handle the 500? No, it cannot.
But very
But
few things
it
can handle a
starts exactly,
500,
but
yeah.
it starts by taking care of that 1 through 100 and putting it into the system. Anything that comes out afterwards, it was going to come out anyways.
but it's designed, and it's designed to overflow at the northeast corner of the site, correct? So.
The water that's going to be hitting the town system is cleaner than it is right now.
Understood, but
Right
what
now.
I'm saying is if it overflows into the northeast corner, at what point should it, if it starts overflowing into the neighbors, which is really the primary concern,
Right.
that's probably a sort, that's probably a note, that probably is gonna indicate failure,
Mm-hmm.
correct, Mike? Because
Well,
you've
again,
now overflow, now you've, the overcapacity is supposed to go into the town system. If it's now going into someone's backyard, you've
Well, the
really.
pl-
You'll
the
see it
ponding area
backing
he
up,
created.
yeah. It's
I
not-
understand,
it's
it's to
not-
divert that, so I guess.
Because of elevations, it's not allowed to go back uphill.
Understood. So
Right.
my point is, that's
If
the
it is
test.
going up,
That's the
yes.
test. If you're
Going
getting
uphill.
water,
Well, then I think that actually works out well, because if we've got evidence that it's going back up into the butter's property, it's not, the design is not supposed to allow that. So question number one, is it backing up into the abutter's property? Then question number two becomes, what are the rain conditions that created that backup? It's easy enough to get the precipitation data. So if we have, and it's easy enough to get a picture on a certain date. So if we have a picture from the abutters that said, hey, look, the water's backing up onto my property, this is an issue, we look at the precipitation data for that date and see that it is a 5-year storm, we've got a real problem. We look at the precipitation and find out it was a Category 5 hurricane, well then, and I realize that's an extreme, that's why I'm using it, then we know that no system is going to be able to deal with a
but
Category 5
you can rely on the
hurricane.
system
Can I-
being designed to
Can I
handle.
play devil's advocate on
Yeah,
that same
absolutely.
question? If you have that 5-year storm,
Yeah,
and you see that that the system is flowing correctly, but the neighbors have a puddle in their yard, it doesn't necessarily mean it came from the system, because the system isn't working.
You're going to have people taking pictures of
I
of
understand
water
that, but
coming
that's what
pouring
I'm
over the
saying. So
property
it's
line,
not a
and
case
that's
of,
what you're going to
you
have
need
to
to
deal with.
see, you need to be able to see practically how that
course.
water is potentially getting there.
Of course, you need to
can't
see
just
the
have,
overflow.
well, I have a puddle. That puddle, it's raining here, it's raining here. The puddles are going to be everywhere.
You need evidence of the overflow.
Thank you.
okay, all right. So then, what I need is, because I am not a stormwater engineer, any technical information that would help me be specific about what needs to go into a draft special permit, if that's where we are at the end of the night. So just think about language and forward it over to Tim. Bill, I'll probably be talking to you directly as well. So, all right, anything else on drainage? I think I'm getting a sense of what we need to do. Do we want to, are you wanting to go back through and check through the comments that Tim captured from our last meeting to see if there's anything more that you want to add or correct in there? You'll see it's the shaded language in there.
What have we done about hours?
So Tim sent out, and I just had it here, a spreadsheet of hours. Tim, do you have it in front of you? Do you want to go through it?
I don't have it in
Okay,
front of me.
so I've got it with me. He's got the Coulter landscaping hours and the Eagle Farms landscaping hours. So Coulter, and this was a special permit that we had done, their greenhouse business was Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, same for Saturday, and Sunday was 9 to 5. Holiday sales, 8 to 9, Monday through Friday, same for Saturday, and same for Sunday. Landscaping business can operate on Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, Saturday, 8 to 5, and Sunday, 9 to 5, and dumpsters, 10 to 2. For Eagle Farms, the use of bobcats and chainsaws is limited to ending at 9 p.m. on Friday, Monday through Friday, and Saturday. Sunday, 12 to 9. There's no opening time Monday through Friday or Saturday. And deliveries, there's no restrictions Monday through Friday or Saturday, but Sunday, they can't start until 10:30. There's no close on Saturday. Tim, did you have the date of the Eagle Farm special permit? And that was a ZBA, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering out of curiosity when it was issued, but that's just pure curiosity. It really doesn't have
It
any.
was Relatively recently,
Yeah. So, okay.
within the past couple of years.
And then Coulter, of course, was our own a couple of years ago. So,
So Eagle Farms can operate until 9 PM.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
And there's no opening time.
no opening time. So now remember, the hours are restricted in the zoning for Thayer, but they have requested, it gives the board the discretion to allow that 1 hour earlier opening time. And so that they, of course, being a business, have requested that 1 hour earlier opening time. So the question for us is whether or not we wish to allow it.
The 1 hour being 7 to 8, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Was there an earlier opening on Saturday or Sunday? No.
It's 8 on Saturday. So it's so the sales office, 7 to 6 Monday through Friday, 9 to 6.
Monday through Saturday.
I mean, Monday, no, it's because it's 9 to 6 on Saturday.
No, that's Sunday.
Oh, then this is Miss Tyke.
It's Monday through Saturday, 7 to 6.
Okay, sales
That's
office.
sales.
Yes,
And then loading and noisy equipment is different.
yes, 8 to 6 is,
7 to 6.
the 7 is the earlier start time that they've requested. It's 8 to 6 in the zoning with the option of going the 1 hour earlier.
Look
Then
at
Saturday,
7E.
it's 9 to 5 with the
Eight.
earlier request
Eight,
for the 8.
yeah, okay, earlier.
Yeah, start. And then Sunday, not allowed for the landscaping business. For nursery sales, it's 10 to 3.
Look at 7E.
7E, okay.
Such loading and use of noisy equipment may only occur between the hours of 7 and 6, Monday through Friday, and the hours of 8 to 5
Oh, I'm still
on
on 4.
Saturday.
Hang on.
No loading or use of noisy equipment on Sundays.
7E. No, which one are you looking at? Are you looking at?
7E.
No, are you looking at the one that was in the warrant, or are you looking at the change? Because this was what was changed at town meeting. So if you look at the voting, it's such loading and use of noisy equipment may occur only between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on Saturday, unless an earlier start of no more than 1 hour is shown to be reasonably necessary for the operations of the landscaping business.
If you look at your 2001 permit, under 1F,
Uh-huh.
it says, "There shall not operate or utilize bobcats except for emergency circumstances, 1, on Monday through Friday inclusive before 8 a.m. or after 6 p.m., on Saturdays and Sundays before 9 a.m. and not after 6 p.m." That's the 2001 permit.
1F, yep. Got it here. So do we want to be consistent with the 2001
Well, I mean,
permit?
that permit is still in effect.
Yep,
So,
for the nursery, rather than for the landscaping, but yes.
well,
Although it's bobcats in general, so,
it says they shall not operate or utilize bobcats. I mean,
8 a.m. to 6, yep, I'm just looking that, and not after 6. Okay, so that's a really good question for you, because our zoning for the nursery sales makes the use of bobcats more restrictive on a Sunday, where the 2001 decision restricts it on Sunday from 9 to 6,
or-
and we restrict it to 10 to 3. So that's something to consider there. And then we're not allowing it at all for the landscaping business. On Saturday, that zoning decision restricts it to 9 to 6. We have in our zoning 9 to 5, but can allow earlier at 8. And then, so it's an
Come
hour
again?
difference.
Saturday, it's 8 to 5 for loading and noising equipment.
No, Saturday, it's 9 to 5, but we can allow 8 to 5
Okay. Okay.
if we want.
So
The
it's not,
request-
it's 9 to 5 then,
It's 9 to 5.
with an extra hour. And
With
Sunday
extra
is 10 to 3 or 11?
10 to 3 for nursery only,
For loading and noisy equipment.
of nursery sales only, yeah. And then Monday through Friday, it's 8 to 6 with the potential for the earlier start at 7. So right now, they're limited to 8 to 6.
8 to 6 is the sales office.
8 to 6 is also noisy equipment.
I thought you just said a minute ago the sales office was
So
7.
it
Hang on, sales office
what
is a different section.
originally was in the zoning was 7 to 6, and then we changed it to 8 to 6 with the 1 hour.
With the discretionary hour, yeah.
With the
I'm not inclined to allow it on Saturday, but I'm open to weekdays at 7.
Well, you're not inclined to allow the earlier hour on Saturday, not the
any
use
morning-
the way you
the
said it, I
weekend.
thought you're not going to allow noisy equipment at all on Saturdays. That
Sorry,
could be
that's not
interesting.
what I
Okay.
meant.
All right, so you're inclined to do 7 to 6 Monday through Friday, and then it would
Open
be
to 7 to
9,
6, Monday to Friday. but
9 to 5 on Saturday, and then presumably 10 to 3.
Well, that's nursery, right?
That's nursery, but it's more restrictive than what's currently allowed for nursery. Although town meeting did,
Are we?
Can we
are
do that?
Are we talking about nursery?
Well, we're just talking about
Landscape.
loading and noisy equipment, and we don't have to make a differentiation, but if there is, they've got to, what happens is that if they rev up the Bobcats and say this is all nursery business, we have to have a way of, they have to justify that.
Well, I'm still. I mean, that goes back to our vehicle conversation, but I'm still inclined to numbering the Bobcats, and
Right.
now at least you've limited the Bobcat use on Sunday to 2 Bobcats instead of 4.
so here's what it says in our zoning 3N for Sunday. It says, there shall be no loading or use of noisy equipment on Sundays, provided that use of equipment for the loading of plant and nursery materials which are not sold as part of landscaping services shall be permissible between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Sundays. So that's actually quite restrictive because it's saying you can use the equipment, but only loading plant and nursery materials. The 2001 decision allows Bobcats between 9 and 6 on Sundays. So
For nursery.
yes, but that can be for any nursery purpose, whereas ours is limited 10 to 3, loading of plant and nursery materials not sold as part of the landscape.
I'm confused about why we're even talking about nursery.
Right.
Because our zoning is more, because it's
No, but
more restrict, it's limiting the use of noisy equipment on Sundays.
do we have jurisdiction on it?
Well, becomes a really interesting question, because our zoning is different from, and yes, we do. There's another provision in the zoning that says if there's,
More stringent.
yeah, exactly. So,
So there's a crossover. So we've been very careful to stay away
Yes.
from nursery throughout all of our discussions. But you're telling me there's a
Sunday
there's a bit of,
crossover.
there's a Sunday crossover that we need to figure out how we want to deal with.
But
is what
But they
I'm saying.
they haven't even requested anything different on Sunday.
They have not requested anything, they have requested what's allowed in the zoning for Sundays. So
Which
then we
is?
leave, which is the 10 to 3.
that
Fine.
they requested. I thought they said nothing. Or was that just?
Nothing for the
Then leave that discussion
landscaping, 10
alone.
to 3 for the nursery. Then we leave it, that's fine. I just
Yeah,
want
we
to
do
make sure that
nothing
we're
for
all aware of
landscaping.
it.
Well,
We
the
do no
special permit
landscaping on
applies to
Sunday.
both landscaping and nursery.
Yes, for things like the hours and that are as
Well, no, the
specified
use
in here.
of Bobcat, I
The
mean,
use of bobcats, yeah.
they thought it was, they thought the special permit covered the landscaping business, and they were wrong. But the question is just what did the court, I mean, the court said it doesn't cover the landscaping business, but just exactly,
When you say special permit, you mean the ZBA special permit?
The
Rather
ZBA
than ours,
special
okay.
permit,
The one that we're discussing, rather, okay.
I mean, my inclination is regulate the landscaping business hours. Let the special permit be what it is. Stay away from the nursery word.
Okay.
And but I do think that is going to require us to go back and figure out a way to enforce which nursery vehicles and which landscaping vehicles we're talking about here.
And that goes back to your numbering system, if you're
Or-
doing.
yeah, whatever,
Which
right.
is.
what
as
numbering
good-
system?
Where he suggested numbering the vehicles so that if Bobcats 1 and 2 were landscape only
And then someone has
Three
to
and four.
monitor how the vehicles are being used.
Right.
Who's going to do that? It may be, Cheryl's not here.
Well, I was going to say, since you volunteered Cheryl for the trees and Mike for the stormwater, I think you're monitoring the Bobcats, Alex.
No, I mean, that's
it's
the,
about-
that's
We'll
the
just
problem.
pick up the keys to 3 and 4
That's
on
the
Saturday
prob-
and bring them
That's the
back.
problem. I mean, I've gotten phone calls saying the Bobcats are blazing, and you've got to come up right away and take a look at these things. And that's the problem, because the Bobcats, and there will say, oh, it's just nursery business. bother yourself.
Well, if there's
Don't
more than
bother
two, if there's
yourself
more than
about
two
that.
running, and there's two that are dedicated to landscaping, and there's two that are dedicated to nursery, and they've got three running, there's something going on, there's a problem.
Well,
So then
exactly,
we're-
but someone has to determine that, and some objective person has to determine
the
that.
problem is it's
I
on a
mean, how
Sunday.
do you,
Problem is it's a
this
Sunday.
gets us to the enforcement question.
I agree,
Right.
it's a Sunday.
When the building inspector is at home, wherever he lives, and there's no one here to come listen to the tree fall in the forest, who's to say that it fell?
So then I think that brings us to our larger question of how are we going to ensure that the requirements that we put in here are in fact followed? What's the check on this? How do we know when we get to the point where we're looking at, if we grant a special permit on this, how do we know when we get to the point that that special permit comes up for renewal that the conditions have been met?
Or not been met?
Or not been met, as the case may be. So what are we going to require?
Well, we've been talking about that as we
We have
went
been
through
talking about
here, as
that,
far as
yes.
logs and whatnot.
Yeah,
On these type of issues, I mean, it's, the building inspector is gonna have to tell us whether or not there are complaints and whether he's been able to validate them, and
okay.
And if
And
there
to
are
your point, if
complaints,
it's on a
how
weekend-
do we resolve them? We
Well,
tell
you
the
probably
building
don't renew the
inspector to
permit.
get cracking?
one is you don't renew the permit.
Well, you don't renew it if the complaints are valid, but if there are
Understood.
complaints that aren't valid, then,
I hear you. So,
and someone's got to determine that. If that's the way it's going to work.
All right, so we have logs for certain activities that we talked about at the last
We
one.
did talk about logs.
We did talk about logs.
Deliveries, basically.
certified by an
exactly.
That
officer.
we could,
yeah.
that had the determined quantities.
Yeah,
I
Right,
think.
The
exactly.
quantities are easier because it's
Right.
log and it's
I
certified.
can't imagine a log saying what bobcats are in use
I
and
agree
for
with
what.
that. That's
Well,
not
and this
practical.
becomes a really interesting question because it's fairly easy on the weekdays and on Saturday to tell because the landscaping business and the nursery business are both going at the same time. So if they're both cutting out at the same time, if something's running at 8 o'clock at night, we know it's a violation, right? Sunday becomes the tricky one because one use is allowed to have noisy equipment and one use is not allowed to
And then
have
it just
noisy
comes down to
equipment.
number of vehicles
What was the
being
difference in the
used.
hours again? I'm sorry, 9 to 6 versus 10 to 2? 10 to 3, I'm sorry?
Hang on, let me
9 to
pull
6
it out.
and 10 to 3.
So on Sundays, 9 to 6
We had 10 to 3.
for nursery, nothing at all for landscaping. So any noise, and ours says 10 to 3 for nursery, but if we're staying away from nursery and just letting the 2001 decision rule on nursery,
I don't,
then-
I think, and you were touching on it, Brian, I thought we already discussed this and indicated to ourselves that we don't have a position to address the nursery.
Well, we don't, so, but I guess the burden of proof, you're innocent until you're proven guilty in this country, so if someone wants to say that there are.
Not true.
you had to say that to a lawyer, right?
You're presumed innocent, you're not necessarily innocent.
Excellent clarification. But in any case, if, it's gonna come down to if there's two bobcats running, it's probably gonna be fine. If there's three running, take a picture.
Two.
And you've got,
Okay.
bring it to the building inspector's office Monday morning.
But the other thing is, though,
I don't know,
what is their restriction, 9 to 6 or 10 to 3?
Well,
I thought we were saying we related.
I think that relies on the special permit, that's my opinion.
I think that the author
I
of
agree.
this, I think you and Tim should think about this.
we can make a proposal and see what the board thinks
I
at the
think
next
you should
meeting.
make a proposal
Okay.
because it does seem to me that we're not, we don't have a solution that's satisfactory to me yet.
And we don't have a solution to tonight, I think. I think this is something we need to think about
On
further.
the hours, excluding Sunday, I was thinking,
Yeah,
in all honesty, what Brian indicated, and that is, I'd be more inclined to agree on an extension of the hour on Monday through Friday and not
so
necessarily
you
on
would also
Saturday.
do the 7 to 6 Monday through Friday, but the 9 to 5 on
I'd be
Saturday.
receptive to
Alex,
that.
how do you feel about that? Allow the earlier hour on Monday through Friday, but not the earlier hour on Sunday.
Well, the earlier hour was in the
Saturday,
original
thank you.
zoning, and on Saturday, what is, I have to look at
Okay.
the comparison. I mean, Eagle had, as a
Eagle
sweet
can do
deal.
whatever they want, pretty
Yeah.
much.
But I'll take a look at Thomas.
What else do we want to discuss tonight? Is there anything else in here that, based on our discussion at the last meeting?
You're going to talk about the traffic pattern that the delivery is going to take
Yes.
to minimize
Yeah,
and the noise situation, the zoning on lighting
yes.
says.
Yes, that's also been an issue that has been brought up a couple of times, so.
Reasonably necessary lighting while minimizing light overspill onto the neighboring properties. It seems to me that one of these decisions had a light provision in it.
Ah. That would be helpful.
But I don't, I mentioned that, and we'll take a look and see if it does, maybe it's a
Okay.
1967 permit.
Yeah, and I've got the permits, so I think, Tim, when you and I do this, we should also just double check and make sure that we're not doing something that's conflicting
There's a
in the
lot,
wrong direction with an earlier permit, so.
yeah, take a look at the numbered conditions on,
In the 1967?
in the 67
Okay.
permit, because they have, it says in number 3, no advertising signs of any kind or floodlights shall be erected on the premises.
Okay,
And I don't know, what they've got there is, may not be a floodlight, but it's pretty close to being a floodlight.
we have had comments to that effect, yes, absolutely, and we've seen pictures.
And the
that-
question that we're going to have to answer is whether or not all those big lights are necessary or,
Or is there
Didn't-
another
Didn't we
lighting?
talk one time in discussion about having them shut down like an hour after closing? Or
Or even at closing itself. I think we also talked about the position of the lights, that they should be downward directed so they're not facing out into the neighbor's property. But,
shields?
yeah, shields, maybe even the 90% cutoff shield. And then I think, to your point, having a required shut-off time is a good one.
That's in this draft. Right,
What?
the floodlights will be turned off at the close of business operations each night.
well, you can't call them floodlights because they're prohibited under the
Spotlights.
1967 permit.
What page is that?
12. I did put the page numbers on.
Yes. Appreciated, greatly
Awesome.
appreciated. Okay. All right.
And you got that in as well, the shielding. This all covers the shielding.
Shielding
Yes.
and
I got that 90-degree
cutoffs.
cutoff
I
in
guess,
there.
I guess the question, once again, are the lights all necessary?
Okay.
And
Yep,
I mean, I guess they're necessary to illuminate sales areas, but
all right, so lighting, yeah.
Lighting, I think is, I want to make sure that we're sensitive to not just spillover, but
The
the
glare.
view to the light, the glare, especially with the spots, they're just,
Yeah.
it can be pretty tough.
Well, we have the 90-degree cutoff, but even that may not be enough to
I
cut
mean,
glare,
90 degrees
so
still, I think.
it still could,
yeah.
yeah, so I'll put in Tim and I will put in a,
They have a shield down to 45 or something?
I mean, that's,
no, I don't know the answer to
floodlighted,
that. Yeah, spotlight,
What?
brighter light.
Light.
Yeah, light. So, but if, you know, if the 1967 special permit, as Alex pointed out, is prohibiting floodlights, and we should probably continue that into, Tim and I can go through and look for any express prohibitions in those permits that should be reflected in this. So, anything else
have
we
a
want to discuss
question on
tonight?
ornamentation, if I, can I
Yes.
ask the applicant a question?
Ask it
you,
here,
I'll ask you
ask
if
me
that's
first,
fine,
and
that's
then
fine, yeah,
the
yeah.
board may have
So I
a,
guess my question on ornamentation is sort of, what are they talking about, right?
Right.
And we talked about size and whatnot, I mean.
Right.
I think we started to get towards the discussion about whether there can be display on site with direct shipping, and I guess for me, it would be helpful to hear the applicant's perspective on that. If that's a good solution, then that might be the direction we can go. If it's not, I'd like to know kind of just what's the mass of what we're talking about here. To your point, is it a
well, what,
3-ton fountain, or is it a,
right, is it
what are we
a-
talking about?
Right, okay.
What,
Is
where
that
does
something
this
else?
come in?
So one of the things that the board can authorize in, and let me find it for you, Alex.
It's page 5.
Yes.
It's 2
Oh, sorry.
in the zoning. It's paragraph 2, definition of landscape business permissible activities. So we have what we.
Landscape ornamentations?
Landscape ornamentations. We do not, the applicant had submitted a quite broad definition of landscape ornamentations.
What did they say?
It covered a lot of things that are typically sold at retail. I don't have it in front of me. I don't know if you've got it with you, Tim.
Mind if I-
Where is it?
You mean on this? I didn't put the definition that they had submitted in this draft. So our question, or the question that I'd raised, and Tim and I had bounced back and forth and decided to bring to all of you, is that we don't actually define what ornamentations are. So since we're being so specific on everything else in this permit, we should probably be specific that if we allow ornamentation, we're clear on what that actually means.
Look at the context.
Yes.
It's stone dust, gravel, pavers, landscape ornamentations, timbered and related materials. I mean,
So what's a landscape ornamentation?
What's the
It would be a
anticipated
f-
negative impact? What are we trying to avoid here? What are we looking at saying that?
Authorizing the retail business under the landscaping permit. If
Shays
landscaping,
long,
now, if landscaping ornamentations are defined as smaller objects that can be sold at retail, they are not a landscaping business.
It's nursery.
And it's potentially nursery, but the definition we were provided by the applicant, which I should have brought with me, was in fact broad enough to cover a retail operation. And so we need to be specific about what landscape. If you remember in the memo that the building commissioner gave us, he asked us not to authorize things like patio furniture. So we just have to, if we're going to say that they can do landscape ornamentation as part of the landscaping business, what they sell there, we need to be specific about what that
Can we
is.
tie it to the idea of being fixed?
Well, that's what I had originally been thinking of, was it was something that required a landscape professional to install, which is why I was
which it
thinking
has to be, just because it's part of the landscaping
Exactly.
business.
Right, but
Exactly.
the extra word of fixed means it's not,
It's part of the
not-
it
landscape.
cannot be logically taken away and brought to another place once
Yeah.
installed.
or not without a
Not-
landscaper to help out.
Logic was the wrong word. It cannot be
Easily.
removed without
Right.
taking away from the landscaping, without taking away from the whole concept of, you see, you can't take the pavers and not put them back.
Right. Did you find it?
I mean, there's a bit in the application.
It was a separate one. Let me see if I can find it while you read that out.
Patio furniture, fire pits, lawn games, complement garden and outdoor living, which I think is kind of what you're getting at.
Excluded. They should be excluded.
This is in
This is
definite-
what they
this is what
suggest
they-
should be
this- yeah,
included,
that's
but
the
it is
proposal.
Then that's
it
different
is a
than
wish
fixed.
list.
Yeah, then that's
Yeah.
different than fixed, for sure.
And that's why I'm saying we need to be
It's stuff
cognizant
that's
of how we
shown on the
define it.
landscape plan that they're going to install. They're going to do a landscape plan, it's going to cost you $10,000, and this is what you're going to get. And if they say, I mean, and I do think it has to be fixed as
Okay.
part of the landscape.
So. All right, so part of landscape plan and installed as part of that, okay.
Fixed.
And fixed,
Items
yeah.
that are intended to be fixed in place.
Yep, I think that's a reasonable way of,
Yeah, I mean, the concept of fixture in real estate is pretty well defined.
right.
Lawn furniture isn't fixed.
Lawn furniture would not be fixed.
Okay. Anything else on here that you want to clarify tonight? And then let's talk about our next steps.
This,
Have we done the wood operation?
I don't think we've had a full discussion of the wood operation. What would you like to bring up?
Well, I mean, we do have times that I think the zoning provides for when they can make deliveries of it.
Yep, deliveries are all,
I think that we should, deliveries in and deliveries out, insofar as possible, should be done during the week.
that's what we were trying to talk about last time, is we have incoming deliveries limited to 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. We didn't have anything on outgoing deliveries. Do we want to put some sort of, do we have any thoughts about?
I think
How that should be
we
done?
should require the majority and perhaps a percentage of whatever, that they occur during the week, during hours when people aren't going to be there.
Okay.
And, you know, what the percentage should be, you make a suggestion. But I'm thinking at least 60%, maybe 70 or 80%.
doesn't that get into a position where it's getting hard to enforce again?
Good, reasonable question.
Well, except for the fact they will know when they're making their deliveries because they're going to have invoices. People are
yes.
going to pay for
Yeah,
that.
it's
And the
easy to,
$100.
it's easy to enforce on renewal. It's harder to enforce by the building inspector, right?
Do we want to require logs for outgoing deliveries as well as incoming deliveries?
Well, they have them, I'm sure, anyway.
Okay, so, all right.
I guess that was presumptive of me to assume that, but,
I mean,
so yes, I think we should.
the hours of the firewood have to be fall the same hours we've already set, right, for the landscaping business.
No, they don't have to be.
Well, that was the only, I
Is
think
it-
that's
is-
part of the
isn't-
question is, do
Isn't
we?
the firewood regulated under this
It
special
can be-
permit for landscaping?
It can have different hours.
Well, but if we don't give it different hours, then it doesn't.
Correct.
Well, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
But of course, if we don't mention that it's included, it's not.
So do you
I
want
would
to
assume if we didn't
restrict,
mention it's included, it would be.
so do you want to restrict, I mean, do
I
you want
think
to
that it
specifically
says-
restrict the firewood to the same hours of operation as the rest of the business?
Well, yeah, sure.
Okay.
We don't want them delivered firewood at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well,
Okay.
We don't want them waking people up at 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday or Sunday.
Okay. So they would not be allowed to start delivering firewood, presumably loading and delivering firewood until they're open for business that morning. Okay, that makes sense.
or, you know, it does seem to me that there are cases where undoubtedly they've got to make a weekend delivery and can't, or an early morning delivery. I mean, there are undoubtedly those cases, but in general, they should do it at a time that doesn't
Are
impact.
you talking about outgoing deliveries, or are you talking about?
Outgoing and
Outgoing.
incoming.
Okay.
I mean, the incoming, they can figure it.
That's why we're asking them to keep logs outside of the delivery hours, which are 9 to 2, so. But those 9 to 2, I think what I'm hearing you
We
say,
put a further restriction on the incoming.
well, that's what I want to
Because
clarify.
incoming's on an 18-wheel trucks.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
that's,
Yeah.
I thought we were pretty strict on the incoming.
When I
The
said it
incoming-
follows the permit that exists, I was talking about the outgoing,
Okay,
The
that's what I-
incoming
that's what I
are
was-
restricted to 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday.
which they should be.
Right. What I'm asking is, do you want those same hours for outgoing, or do you want the outgoing to be limited to the business hours?
I would just limit it to the business.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
I would think they could do it between 9 and 4.
In which
9
case,
to
they
4?
can't deliver on Sundays because they can't operate as landscaping business on Sunday.
Except with special, you make
It's those
the
exceptions
exception.
that are, going to be critical. So
That's what's
how
caused
do you
all the
define an
problems.
exception? Is it one time
How
per
do you
month?
define the
I'm
exception?
lost. Why are we allowing exceptions?
Well, that's what I'm,
Because they have said that there are people who say, we'll buy firewood, but we need it now. And I'm not going to be around during the week. We need it this weekend. I'll go somewhere else if you don't.
Well, load up your truck and park it in Randolph and deliver it on Sunday if you wanted.
Well, I don't know. It seems to me that exceptions can be made without
I
throwing
need a
away the
loaf of
rule.
bread and a gallon of milk instantaneously, but I don't know what a quart of firewood.
I don't know, I guess I'm a little concerned about exceptions, but in this case, I think the building inspector needs to
Right,
know
that's-
when
it's-
to pull the,
Well,
If you allow exceptions, then you,
not that he's around on those days anyway.
I mean, if the building inspector is the best we got, I'm not sure that he's going to be worried a great deal about firewood.
I just don't know who else we would have on a weekend is the problem.
There's
So-
no one on weekends.
Right, exactly. It's, you know, we have the building commissioner and the rest of the building department during the week. And on weekends,
I
I'm
know we
assuming
had-
that,
I know we had testimony saying that the weekend deliveries are sometimes important.
right.
And
Okay.
so I think we've got to,
So then I think
like
we need to
I like business
continue
hours.
thinking about what we do if there are exceptions. Obviously, we're requiring a log, so we'll know that there have been exceptions. We're going to have to think about how we handle those. There are probably,
I
as Alan's
wouldn't
point-
encourage it.
well, I mean, but I think that comes up in the review, is if we
If you come
say,
back in 2 years or 3 years and the permit's up, they say, oh, 2 times they delivered outside. All right. So,
right,
big
but
deal.
if the
But I
exceptions are
wouldn't- I
10
wouldn't-
exceptions
I
per
wouldn't-
week, then we
I
have
wouldn't,
another issue.
Verbalize exceptions or encourage
if you
exceptions.
say,
or
if you
indicate
say
it.
that 80% of the deliveries have to be during the week between these hours, I mean, that's one way of doing it.
No, but Alex, I'm just thinking, I mean, one of the biggest things that's come out of this whole process is, how do you enforce this?
We haven't
Right.
figured that, we
exceptions.
haven't figured it out
I mean,
yet.
if I'm up there and I'm even, if you ask me to monitor it 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you say 20% can be outside of the day, I'm gonna have a hard time saying, well, wait a minute, we had 10 trucks that day, what,